thing. Oh, I forgot I got you the ones that transitioned, huh?
Yeah.
We're live?
All melting. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm melting.
Hey there, it's Jordan. Live from the demolition of the middle class, Altoona, Pennsylvania, or the former rail capital of America. We're kind of in an old, what would you call this? Kind of like a scrap yard?
Steel yard.
Steel yard.
An old steel yard. I was here a couple years ago when I was on another reporting tour. And this used to be kind of one of the biggest rail steel hubs in America. I believe, I don't know the number, but I think it was on Hitler's list for bombing because of the
Horseshoe curve.
the horseshoe curve, which we'll talk about. But like a lot of cities in the Rust Belt, it has been, I'd say, left behind. A lot of the jobs have gone overseas, and it's become over the years a lot more right-wing, definitely Trump country. But there's still some holdouts here. We'll call them progressive-minded people, even some fine people that ran for office. So I wanted to come here. We're kind of on the road, and smash the like button, share this live stream. Kind of covering inflation and our economic misery, housing. I just covered in Philadelphia an encampment that's popped up because another group of low-income people are getting evicted so that real estate developers can make money. But I don't know. Let's start with inflation because this is already kind of a really struggling area. Western Pennsylvania, we're about, 2 hours from Pittsburgh?
Yep.
But on top of it, gas, food, electricity, doesn't seem like there's like a vibrant list of job openings here that you could live off of. So just talk to me about where were you before inflation economically and how have things changed? Introduce yourself to.
I guess first, my name's Tim. For the past 3 years up until the beginning of July, I worked for a home care company, which is one of the few thriving industries left, taking care of our aging population. But I was the driver, and with the gas prices where they were at, the company felt it was no longer economically feasible for them to offer ride services. So now I'm joining the ranks of the unemployed.
So basically you were the driving service for their workers.
Yeah, they basically undercut Uber so that their employees wouldn't have to pay Uber. They could just have $6 deducted out of their paycheck for each ride. So they were making money hand over fist on them. But and then they just decided it wasn't worth their money anymore to keep us drivers on the payroll.
Because of the gas prices.
Yeah, that's what they
say.
Yeah.
So what have you been doing since?
Well, since then I've been working. I was lucky enough that they gave me a severance pay, so I'm taking this chance to get my grandmother's house repaired for her because the city's always on her back for her grass being too high, for weeds, stuff like that. Her roof, she just has a tar paper roof because she can't afford to get a new roof put on.
So the city government seems to be focused more on granny than jobs for its citizens?
Yeah, it seems like their main concern is making money for the property developers downtown, people that own the buildings. It's a little bit gentrified now, but the shops come and go because even the shops can't keep up with the prices that the building owners want. So they might last 6 months to 8 months and then...
Because I was here 5 years ago and the little downtown looked like an episode of The Walking Dead. There was boarded up everything. I think a few stores were still open, but most of them kind of were closed down, or it was really kind of dead downtown.
Yeah.
But they've been recently trying to gentrify it.
Yeah, if you've got the money to spend, you can go over there and get an $8 coffee or maybe throw some axes, but other than that, there's not really anything for the working people to enjoy.
And what is work around here? I know you're a nursing student.
Yes,
Well-
I'm a nursing student. I also work for a small business, so I work at a boutique. But for the most part, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I had to leave my medical profession because I couldn't afford daycare. My paychecks were literally going for daycare, so I said, what's the point of working when I can be a stay-at-home mom and not pay for daycare? But I have
How much was daycare?
$32 a day,
Okay.
which it's not bad when you break it down, but it adds up for someone, living paycheck to paycheck.
Well, it
And,
also adds up if like gas is like
Yeah.
$4.70, food like milk is $5.
Exactly. And my nursing school is an hour away. So the price of gas, now I'm like, do I drop out because I can't afford to get to a college that is already cheaper for me to go to? Or do I just try to make it by to become a better mother and to provide for my family? Because I have 6 kids
Wow.
to provide for. So it's tough.
I thought you were like 18 or something. Wow.
Nope.
Okay.
We have a family of 8, and it's rough. Some days I have to decide if I'm going to feed them an actual meal or just ramen noodles. So
How old are your kids?
we're sending our oldest, she's 18, to she's actually going to become a nursing student too. So she's off to college in August. And it's like, how do we pay for me to go to college, her to go to college, and then the rest are in high school and younger.
So with 8 kids, when you're talking about rent has gone up, or if you're trying to buy a house, good luck. Food prices, electricity, Philly people told me real estate, property tax, everything.
Yeah.
Like, dumb question, but how do you live off that? Have you had to pick up extra work?
So thankfully, my boyfriend has a full-time job, and he's considered middle class. So we're too rich to get any assistance, but too poor to live. I apply for food stamps, medical assistance. We get denied for everything. Even at me just being a stay-at-home mom with no income, he still makes too much to get any type of help. For me to get daycare assistance for just my son alone, they want me to work 10, 15 hours a week on top of going 30 plus hours to nursing school. So that, it's very rough.
I assume with nursing school you're taking out loans?
Oh yeah. I can't afford just to pay out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it must be interesting when you hear President Biden talking about that the unemployment rate is low and GDP is up and the economy is doing better. It must be a whole different world for you in reality.
Not really.
Yeah.
I struggle every day, and I have to fake it because you don't want your children to see you struggling.
Right.
I grew up struggling. I grew up in this area watching my mom struggle with addiction and not having a job, and I had to grow up fast for my age to provide for my siblings, and it's a shame that I'm still doing it 10, 15 years later with the kids that I actually have.
Right.
And if I would get pregnant right now, I would have to decide if I want to keep that child or abort it, because I can't afford to feed another mouth. I can barely afford to feed the mouth that I have in my home.
Well, you're lucky you, at the moment, can decide.
Yeah.
Because,
Right, and in our state, yes.
Yeah.
But if I live somewhere else,
right.
I'm in jail.
Mhm.
And the government can't help me feed my kids. The government can't help feed the kids that are in need. So,
So it's interesting that this is going on, but the number one story on CNN is the Secret Service deleted text messages.
oh yeah.
Not that that's okay, but it just seems like the more I go around, it's there's the house is on fire for most people.
Right,
But what you see in the media is just an alternative reality.
exactly.
And what about you, our resident local candidate? You ran for mayor, for city council.
Yes.
Pretty right-wing area, pretty Republican area, so you didn't win, but you know.
Yeah, running as a Democrat.
What's your name, by the way?
My name's Bridget Jackson. In 2019, I did run for mayor. I lost, unfortunately, in my primary against the other candidate. And then in 2020, myself along with 3 other people ran against the Republicans, but again, we lost. But what do you do? I currently work for Sheetz, so I don't know if you guys have gotten to check out Sheetz.
I saw it on the signs. Is that like a deli or something?
So it's a gas station,
Okay.
Store,
but
yeah.
We
like
do a little bit of
Wawa.
everything. It's gas station, restaurant,
Is it like
car
there's
washes.
Wawa
Yeah.
and Sheetz?
Yeah.
They
Yes,
have like
exactly.
and Rudders. They all have like an ongoing battle.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's a family-owned business that actually started in Altoona. They started with one store. We're now opening. We're close to 700 locations, but they're a really great company to work for. I've been very fortunate that when I switched jobs to go to Sheetz 3 years ago, my husband and I both left our old job and both went to work for them. We took a pay cut, and I was really concerned, like, if we take this pay cut, are we going to be able to make it? But actually, we were paying so much for our health insurance at the old employer. We were paying about $1,000 a month just to cover our family, on top of having a $4,000 deductible. So, there were times when we had to be like, are the kids really that sick? Can we really afford to take them to the doctor, or can we just wait this out?
Not so good at during a pandemic.
Yeah. But now we switched, and I make more money than I ever have, but it really doesn't feel like it. We're fortunate. My husband and I both work full-time jobs. We make decent money, but it's still a struggle, paycheck to paycheck. If something would break in our house, I don't know where we would find the funds to fix that. I need new tires for my car, so trying to budget that when you going to the grocery store used to be maybe $150. Now it's close to $300 for everything that we need. So
For the same thing that you
for the
used
same
to-
thing, I shop
yeah.
at. I'm a religious Aldi's shopper too, so I try to live within my means. But even the same, I used to be able to fill a cart for $150. Now I get maybe half of a cart, and we're at $150.
And
So
not to interrupt her, but
ahead.
I shop for her sometimes. I'm a personal shopper. I try to do that on the side. And so I see prices going up every day when it's not even stocked. The shelves are not stocked. So you have to pick and choose what you actually need and what is not there. So it's like, do you buy in bulk because you don't know if it's going to be there the next day, or do you just buy one thing because you can only afford one thing?
and,
And by the way, a lot of those supermarkets are actually price gouging, and
Yes.
that's not like, oh, well, we're paying more, so we're just passing it off.
Exactly.
They're not paying that much more
Right.
to be charging what they're charging.
Yeah. And now I like I said, I make about 3 times what the minimum wage is in Pennsylvania. So I can't even imagine how anybody working for minimum wage, which is what a majority of the jobs around here are, how they survive. And that's why I wanted to run for local office, to help uplift the most vulnerable people in our community, because when we do that, we all succeed. But people just keep voting red.
Tell me about that. I mean, I'm not like a rah-rah Democrats guy.
And I'm not
but,
either. I'm
but,
very much.
I don't really get that, because this was Trump country,
Yeah, very much
and
so.
I don't really think much has changed through 4 years of Trump here.
No.
So why are they so religiously still? Is it the culture war? Is it the tweets? What?
I would say culture war has a lot to do with it. We live in a population that last I checked was 93% white. There's very little diversity here, and there's a lot of outward migration, but not a lot of inward.
Right.
People moving here from other places. And I'm so fortunate for the time that I spent. I lived down near Philadelphia for about 4 years when I was in college, and I'm so fortunate for that experience, because when I came back here, I had a lot of unpacking to do of, mindsets that I had to work through. And so it is possible. My brother was a dead ass, 100% Donald Trump fan, and he was at our Black Lives Matter march and has done a total 360. So I think it's possible. It just seems like an impossible battle in this area.
And the Democrats haven't given anybody anything. And I'm old enough to remember when we gave them a supermajority in
2009.
Yeah, and all we got for it was cash for clunkers
And a Republican healthcare plan.
Yeah, so I actually work.
Well, no, they've done for you. They sent your jobs to other countries.
Oh yeah.
NAFTA. Everybody says, oh, Russia, that's why Hillary lost. I could tell you, I was at these Trump rallies in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. I probably covered about 40 or so in 2016. He had them at NAFTA. That's all he had to say. I mean, NAFTA, which was the trade deal, the Republicans were in on it too, both of them. But there was a lot of things that decimated towns like this, but NAFTA was one of the big ones.
One of the biggest employers that we had was a place that I worked for almost 10 years, and with call center, it was a call center, so the lifespan of those is normally 10 to 15 years, and they try to target areas like this where they know they're going to get a lot of people that are going to apply and need jobs, and then work through everybody. But so I worked there for almost 10 years, and then they were starting to send people from our center over to the Philippines to train people. And that was kind of my cue that, like, this is not going to end well. And they just shut the whole center down about 2-3 months ago.
Right.
And a lot of people lost their jobs because they didn't have positions, or they weren't willing to pay the wage that those people were at now to go with another company.
And what about you? If you can't see, she's playing injured here, so thank you. What's your name?
My name is Janina Gorman. I work with Put People First and the Poor People's Campaign, actually. But I was also a telephone service worker for a long time, and then I was actually a server. And serving wages in PA start at $2.15 an hour. I don't know if anybody's aware of that.
$2.15?
Yeah, because you're supposed to make tips to make up for it. So I was doing serving in the day, and at night I was delivery driving to try to make ends meet. And then I got hurt, and I can't serve. And I went back for my delivery job, and they said that they couldn't afford to pay people because of gas prices. So I don't have a delivery job anymore.
So let's backtrack. You tore your ACL?
I destroyed my ACL. They had to rebuild me one, yeah.
Wow.
And I had to have my meniscus repaired. I completely blew out my knee, basically, and they had to do 4 surgeries to repair it.
What was your bill for that?
I haven't looked. Probably quite high. I'm on Medicaid. I do qualify for Medicaid, so I'm hoping it covers the majority of it because it was necessary. But they made me go to physical therapy before they did the surgery, and that actually caused more damage than it did help. But because of being on Medicaid, I had to do it that way. Yeah.
A couple years ago, I went to a chiropractor. My lower back was hurting me. I say, I should probably get an MRI, right? Mm-hmm. He says, no, you don't need an MRI. He cranks me up for 6 months. Every time I'm feeling worse and worse and worse. He's like, no, you don't need an MRI. You're going to feel worse before you get better. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Beginning of 2018, I can't walk. I have muscle spasms down my leg. I literally, my calf, my foot was numb, my left foot. Finally, I get an MRI. My disc was on my nerve, and a piece of it broke off. I was stuck in my, I didn't even know there was a thing called the spinal cavity. So I had a big, like, fried chicken looking piece of my disc stuck. And he said, the surgeon was like, if we don't remove that, you're not going to get feeling in your foot back. Right. But he told me not to get an MRI, so you're saying...
I got hurt last year, technically, last summer, and my doctor didn't get me a referral to an ortho. So I figured, it can't be that bad, I'll just work through it. And I did. I was working those 2 jobs. And then the first time I did anything other than just walking, I jumped up for a family picture. That sounds so stupid, but the photographer said, buddy, jump up and say yay. And I went yay, and when I landed, I had no knee. And the ortho was like, this has been damaged for a long time. Why didn't you get in sooner? Well, I didn't have a referral because I went to my doctor, and he said I didn't need one. He said it was okay. It was probably just a meniscus, and I could walk it off, and I'd be fine. So I kept working. And now here we are, but now I can't work in the industry that I was supporting my family on. And yeah, I'm pretty petrified, especially with like the CTC tax credits not coming in and stuff like that. That was making it so that we could survive. I have 3 kids with disabilities, and I have to go back and forth. This is one of my daughters, back and forth to Pittsburgh all the time. And us going down to Pittsburgh for my son weekly right now is like $150 a week just for us to go make sure that he's getting the care he needs.
I take it there's no comparable services around here?
No.
If you need to see a specialist, you have to travel to Pittsburgh, most likely.
Yeah.
Or Philly.
And especially he needs specialists for gastro. He also needs specialists for mental health care. And we don't have any trauma specialists here that can help him, so we have to go to Pittsburgh.
Now let me ask you, when you're driving him back and forth, and you're, I don't know how much it is. Like I got 6 gallons today for like $25. It was crazy. No, wait a minute. It was $30.
Yeah,
Excuse
yeah.
me, for 6 gallons.
Yeah.
I was like, let me fill it up. I was on half. I'm like, let me fill it up because there's like a
Yeah.
stretch in Pennsylvania with no exits. That must be kind of infuriating when you're filling it up and realizing like these stations are making record profits.
Well, yes, that oil companies are making record profits and we're paying that much per gallon is ridiculous. And everybody wants to blame each other, either Republican or Democrat or whatever, but it's not. We have to look up instead of looking across. You're not the reason my gas prices are up. You're not the reason my gas prices are up. The power holders who hold the stocks for those oil companies, the people who own those companies, are the ones that are making sure that we're paying out the nose for something we can't afford, and they're the ones killing the economy. It's not you and me. We're just everyday people trying to get our basic needs met. We're not the enemy. And yeah.
I'm going to get you a free United Corporations of America shirt from the Status Coup store, because that's what you're talking about. That's why I always call it the United Corporations of America.
Yep.
Biden, Trump, whatever, they're not making the decisions. I mean, Biden right now, they said he can't do anything. They're giving these oil companies $15 billion a year in subsidies.
While they're
Free
not
money.
paying taxes. They're not paying taxes. Like, let's be real. If they were paying taxes, which I guess in the 50s, like people that were rich like that paid their fair share of taxes, and all of a sudden we had more money for public schools, we had more money for public transit, we had more money for jobs, we had more money for infrastructure. But those people are protected, right? Because they're in the good old boys club. You and I aren't in that club, unfortunately, so we have to fight for everything, including our basic needs. Yeah.
I'd still like to know how we ended a 20-year war and then increased the defense budget. It seemed like there was a lot of manufacturing consent that went on for that.
Well, we also, as we ended that war, we're actually starving the people of Afghanistan, but that's a whole different topic. So you're her daughter.
Yes.
Tell me about growing up in Altoona. I know it's not exactly the vibrant city that maybe Pittsburgh is. And what it's like now, because obviously you've been seeing your mom struggling.
Yeah, so
And what's your name again?
My name is Erin.
Okay.
Pratt. I go to the local school in Altoona. I was actually born in Oklahoma, but I was basically raised here. The only issue with saying that is that I grew up in the foster care system and not by any of our choices. I was in Huntington, I was in Bedford County, I was everywhere. So I left Altoona for a good bit of time. I came back and this is not my home anymore. I came back and like inflation has taken over my friends and family's lives. And I don't really know what I can do about that as a person except speak out, get the story out that this is real. This isn't propaganda from the Democratic or the Republican Party. This is real people that are struggling no matter where they are from. And like, it's not just Altoona, but Altoona is really being hit hard right now.
Well, it was already kind of before inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was kind of treading water.
Yeah.
And you poured
and
that
then
on top.
you're just sinking us now at this point.
And as a young person, I mean, you're told like, oh, go to college, get an education, and live the American dream. How's that working out?
So about that, I was always told that I'm like smart or whatever. Go to college, Aaron. Go get an education. Go be a doctor or a lawyer, because that's all you can really be in Altoona. Go do something great with your future. Don't be a nobody. But then when I try to tread that water, when I try to do that uphill battle, it is an uphill battle. It is, well, wait, how do I go to college if college isn't free? How do I go to college how do I go to the college of my dreams if it's only accepting those of the upper middle class or higher? How do I go to the college of my dreams if it's not accepting minorities as much as they should be? You know, how do I get this education without paying an arm and a leg for it? I've always wanted to go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, whatever. I've always wanted to better myself, get educated, and do that live the American lifestyle. And then I sort of woke up. And I realized that how much pressure that would put on my family and how much pressure that would put on me. And here are the realities. Like, the realities are that a very large majority, I'm not sure about the exact number, but a very large majority of those that apply for college don't get into college or get into a community college, which, by the way, is deemed as lesser education. Now, I'm not really sure how that works, because if it's a college and you're told to go to college and it's lesser education, then why do you have different scales of education for the rich and the poor? It's segregation. And it's not segregation as in, like, oh, well, you're a different color than me. It's segregation as in you're a different class than me. And that's literally all America was supposed to be fighting against.
Right. And by the way, if you're lucky enough to get that education, then you're basically a debt slave for the rest of your life.
Still paying all my student loans. I graduated in 2011.
Yeah.
I still owe $13,000.
Most people,
Almost $14,000.
Which brings me to the Democrats. I think we could all agree. I mean, you guys are in the belly of the beast here. That the Republican Party isn't exactly, fighting the good fight for you.
No.
But I think the Democratic Party, in many ways, Biden, the media. I mean, some of you, I think, were Bernie people. We were just constantly fed that he's the only one that could get things done. He's the only one who could get things done. Bernie's a dreamer, but Biden could bring the Republicans over, and he could bring close the gap in the Democratic Party. I mean, the planet's on fire. Today he announced, I'm not gonna do a climate emergency. He could. I don't think any of us were alive, but JFK in 1962, before the CIA killed him, the steel companies were price fixing, basically like the oil companies are doing now. Mm-hmm. And he went after them. He said, I'm taking away your submarine contracts, all this stuff, and they folded. But Biden doesn't do that. And the Democrats, listen, I think it should be one of the top priorities, female reproductive rights, the attacks on LGBTQ people. But this is kind of a gift for them, because they could run on that, and they don't have to focus on we gave you a $1,400 check and a kick in the ass. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of talk about? You don't really have any politicians really representing you, because there are things they could do to lower prices that they're not doing. Anybody?
I can say firsthand that I worked briefly for the Democratic Party of Pennsylvania, and that was 2018. We had a slate of candidates that I was volunteering for here, and then they hired me. And instead of paying me to work here with those candidates, they sent me about an hour up to State College, because that was more viable, and they just wanted to run the vote totals up in the areas that they could, and they didn't even care really. Like, there was never a discussion about what are the issues that affect the area, why are you interested in being here and helping us with this. It was just, we need to raise money, and this is where it makes sense for us to spend our money.
So not hey, why is this whole area Republican? Why, what can we do to persuade voters? Just
I looked. They had 112 targets in Blair County, which is a county of 100,000 people. There are 112 people here that they felt it was worth their time to talk to and see how. And you're just never going to win people over if you don't at least make the effort to contact them, preferably at their door, and have a conversation and see what's important to them. Because my guess would be that 9 out of 10 of them would say the economy is the biggest issue in their lives.
Right. It's interesting, because when I would go around to these Trump rallies, even in Pennsylvania, a lot of the Trump people said their number 2 was Bernie. Mm-hmm. A lot of Trump people like Bernie, or if they didn't love him, I don't agree with him on everything, but that guy actually is legitimate. He means what he says. He's not a bullshit artist. So I do feel like populist, kind of working class politicians can at least get an ear of a lot of these Republican voters.
Yeah, I mean, John Fetterman seems to be doing, he has some issues himself, but he's proving that a populist message can carry in Pennsylvania.
You mean Dr. Oz of New Jersey is not flying in Altoona?
I haven't seen him to know. He did
He was at a restaurant in here a couple weeks ago.
But
It's funny because he's a vegetarian, but he was like holding up a cheesesteak, I think, and yeah.
What was the Tom and Joe's?
Yeah. But I think it's
Yeah, Tom and
I think what
Joe's.
you're saying is like it's crazy because all of the policies that we're talking about poll incredibly well and Republicans like it. And if Democrats cared about winning, they could do some of
You're
these
right.
things. The student loan cancellation, among other things. But it seems like they don't want to rock the boat too much with the donors.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about, I mean, you've got a family of 8 kids. It's
Yeah.
got to be kind of rough when you know nothing's coming from the politicians. And by the way, we're talking about inflation, but like that's like a year-ish kind of, there's been something called gentrification, which is like permanent inflation for like 10, 15 years.
Right.
Even here, like housing has been going up for a while.
Yeah, housing's going up, but no one can afford to, pay their rent. And you never know, like tomorrow I could be homeless. Like we're living paycheck to paycheck and we own our house, thankfully, but who says next month we can't afford to pay our mortgage? We're living out in the streets because we don't have much family here, many friends. Who's going to take 8 people in, So just everything's rising. When I first got my car, it's a 2016, it was $25 to fill up. Now it's probably close to 60, 70. And that's me driving to school, filling that up 3-4 times a week, And like I said, it's just very frustrating and depressing to think about that kind of stuff because all I'm trying to do is better my life to go more into debt to better my family,
And I'm curious about that too because I've interviewed some nurses during this pandemic.
Yes.
So you're going to school to become a nurse, which is very admirable. But
Yes.
like, a lot of these
trust
folks
me.
are working like 14-hour shifts. Their hospitals are trying to skim them,
Oh, yeah.
not pay them overtime, these kind of things.
I think about it every day if I'm making the right choice going into that field. And it's hard because I'm helping save lives and take care of said government officials that don't even want to take care of me. So
Judy Ward, perfect example. She's an RN, she's one of our representatives, and she has voted against safe nurse-patient ratios. And if you ask any of the nurses at UPMC, they are just overloaded with patients where patients have died because they are so overloaded with patients. But we have representatives that are supposed to be representing us, voting against keeping us safe in our hospitals by mandating that there be ratios that are acceptable.
yeah.
I can kind of talk about for you because you were talking about these fossil fuckers, as I call them. You always see from Obama came in during the financial crash, rock bottom, then the jobs come back, most of them the shitty non-livable jobs, and then the media starts pushing, the economy is coming back. Same thing now, pandemic, everything hits rock bottom. The jobs are coming back. Most of them, frankly, are in the hospitality industry and not really vibrant union jobs. But you see, they cover inflation, but at least Biden and the Democrats, they say, the economy's record bounce back. I don't know what they're talking about because other than certain pockets of downtown areas of most major cities, I mean, most people are just kind of really just clawing their way through.
Surviving.
Yeah. I had to count change the other day to put gas in my car to get my daughter to where she needed to go. It's a struggle, it's a scrape, and gentrification has happened in Altoona. The major contributor to that would be the UPMC Corporation here in Altoona, who, by the way, does not pay any taxes on any of the lands that they operate on because they are a nonprofit organization that just paid their CEO, a $3 billion raise? Yeah, but they're nonprofit, so they don't pay any taxes.
What kind of company are they?
UPMC is a healthcare company.
Ah.
They own,
Everything.
Yeah,
they have
Based out of
healthcare
Pittsburgh.
monopolized.
we used to have 2 hospitals in Altoona, and Altoona was actually the foundation for this. I don't know if you guys know this, but they bought both the hospitals, and then they closed the one so they didn't have any, I believe they call that a monopoly. They didn't have any, competition. And then the nearest hospital other than Altoona that we can go to is 45 minutes away. So if you have an emergency, if you have a heart attack, your choices are to wait in the emergency room for up to 6 hours, or to try to drive 45 minutes and hope that you don't die on the way there. But because of UPMC coming in and bringing in a lot of healthcare workers from all over the place. Now we have like whole malls that were bought that are now medical plazas. They're not malls. They used to be strip malls with different shops and whatnot. Now they're medical plazas. We have most of our commercial property in Altoona now is owned by UPMC. They're not paying any taxes on those properties. They're not contributing to this economy. They're not helping anything here, but somehow they still get away with that.
Well, I'm sure they're donating to the city council and the mayor.
To the right people, yeah, I'm sure they are too.
Just lobbied our city council just this past month, changed the zoning laws, so now UPMC can rent them housing, like company housing, and do it so in like a dorm style manner where you don't have to have your own kitchen, bathroom. You can just have everybody renting individually in one unit like you would in a dorm.
Lovely. Yeah.
So, and then in this very same article where they're announcing this change, they also complain about unhoused people downtown sleeping on benches.
Yeah.
So they're actively, in one sentence, making it harder to afford housing, and then the other.
That kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys saw this a couple months ago, but this greedy little fuck real estate developer, basically like buying up homes, redeveloping them with improvements and then jacking them up to rent. And he was actually on 60 Minutes. I was surprised they even covered it. And he's like, hey, what's wrong with renting the American dream? So basically they're just jacking up prices, not so you can't buy it, but you could rent the American dream.
And that's when about 4 years ago I could rent a whole house in Altoona for $650 a month. Now I have a 4-bedroom apartment that is half of a house, and I'm paying $850 a month plus utilities. That
have they improved it at all? Or?
I mean, honestly, the housing here, I'm going to say this, and probably I'm going to be very unpopular for it. The housing authority here doesn't really care about the tenants; they care about the landlords. And
that's not just here, by the way. But yeah.
You can have. Well, here we have something called a legal 10-day eviction, where you can literally have a house, and 10 days later you can have no house and nowhere to go. And it's legal here in Altoona without any type of warning, without anything. And you don't even have to be behind on rent. The landlord can just say, "Oh no, I want them out." And you have 10 days to get all your belongings out of your house and find somewhere else to live. And if you can't make it in that 10 days, oh, sorry, so bad, too sad, sorry about your luck. And we have like massive amounts of mobile home parks, like a half hour away from here, that are full with families that have nowhere else to go because they lost their housing. But yeah, the economy is soaring here in Altoona. Thanks for asking.
And you have a lot of mobile homes parks developing?
Yeah. And they're charging, it's less than rent, but it's not by much. So they'll charge you like $450 a month for the lot, but then they're charging you like $200 to use their electric or $150 to use their water. You don't have any choices because you're in their park, you have to. But you end up paying about the same as what you would pay in an apartment, but that's the last place people have to go. Or, children and youth will come in and take your kids because you don't have housing. So
by the way, wait till you find out what they're serving you in that water. Because I promise you it's not clean.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already know. I don't want to think about it, but I already know. And yeah, it's terrible.
And I know at least one of them is in a floodplain where it just is always, even a week after it rains, it's still damp and just
Muddy,
swampy.
yeah.
And I guarantee you wouldn't be able to get, nobody would give you insurance to actually build a home there, but you can rent it to low income people and let them live in it.
So let me ask you, whatever you guys were, I think some of you were kind of on the Bernie train. What do you do when obviously the Republicans aren't coming, the Democrats are not coming? They'll feed you some marketing slogans, send you some fundraising emails, but for the most part, we are in an old steel scrapyard, which is pretty symbolic. This city used to be really vibrant back in the 1950s, 60s, a rail town.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but it used to be, shipping, one of the major hubs for transportation in terms of products coming on the rail. How do people organize? Because I think on the left, people are really deflated. They've knocked on doors, they've phone banked. Frankly, you got some elected progressives not doing anything. AOC got arrested yesterday, and that's great and all, but she wasn't getting arrested, during a pandemic for Medicare for All.
All right, I see
So-
you. So I actually belong to two organizations, Put People First PA and the Poor People's Campaign, which are doing exactly that. We're organizing across lines of division, working class people coming together to demand our needs and to get them done. Through those organizations, we were able to organize that Black Lives Matter march that most of you attended, where over 1,000 people in Altoona, Pennsylvania attended. Now, if we can get 1,000 people to a Black Lives Matter march here in Altoona, PA, we can do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things to make positive change. We just got to get everybody together. And so that has become my focus and my goal, is to bridge the differences and to make people understand that we have a whole lot more in common with each other than we do with the 1%. We have a whole lot more in common with each other, whether we're Republican, Democrat, whatever, because we're fighting for our right to survive. We're not fighting for an extra 5% on our paycheck. We're fighting for our right to survive. We're fighting to put food on our table for our kids and get their medical treatments done. We're fighting for our needs. And our basic needs need to be met. And if the Democratic Party doesn't want to do it, if the Republican Party doesn't do it, fine, we'll do it for ourselves.
And let me ask you, because this is Trump country.
Yeah.
So what kind of tactics did it take to a lot of right-wingers came out for that George Floyd protest. What do you think did it? Was it just because it was so outrageous even the Republicans couldn't stand for it, or? We chose our wording very carefully. It was a march. It wasn't a protest. We did a march. We did a lot of things that were very symbolic from things that Martin Luther King did, to make sure that people understood that we were a nonviolent movement, that we were just organized to make change and to bring awareness to those issues.
So let's be clear, that did not stop people showing up with AK-47s.
It didn't stop the opposition. However, they didn't have a leg to stand on as far as accusing us to be violent when they were the ones that were removed from the area and none of us were being violent.
And the ones online saying they wanted to run us over with their cars.
Or sending me death threats to me and my daughter.
Killing our dogs,
let's be real.
that was something.
Yeah, somebody actually did kill our dogs.
Wait. Hold up. Somebody killed your dogs at this thing?
Rat poison all over our yard.
They poisoned our yard and 2 of our dogs died. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I was organizing.
A George Floyd protest.
Yeah.
My wife's watching right now, crying hysterically. So
I'm trying not to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying not to
Because
cry.
it's like people like these people, it's like the people I need in my life to be an ally. And I'm sorry your animals died, but I'm so grateful for you.
It hasn't shut me up. It made me fight harder. That's much I'll tell you. Now I fight for them as well as for us. Okay.
And people don't realize, I have a mixed child, he's black and white, and I have to teach him both sides. Someone shouted the N-word at him the other. He's 2. How does that make you feel better, yelling that at my son? He can't even barely speak, and I have to teach him what that means, or what did he say, mommy? It's just very frustrating. But we need people to stand up and speak up, and that's what it's gonna take. I hate social media, but love it because you can get your word out there. You can spread the word. And I think a lot of people are scared, especially in a conservative area, to stand up against their family members who they so love their whole lives. But someone that loves you is not going to shut you down for standing for basic rights. What does my skin color, my gender, or anything like that have to do with you going on about your day? How am I affecting you daily?
You know what I tried with my father? He's not quite like a Altoona Republican, but he likes Trump, and I say, I'll make you a deal. You let me talk uninterrupted for the next 20 minutes, and don't try to say anything, and just listen. And let me show you some videos, and just listen. And I'll let you talk for 10 minutes longer, and I'll listen.
Right.
And by the time I'm done, he's not going on for 50 minutes. So I don't know if family members will allow you that.
Well, my boyfriend's side of the family is white, and die-hard Trump, and I don't feel comfortable going to most of his family functions, and we barely have a relationship with his mother because she never wants to listen to the other side. Or if I won't even mention any politics, but I'm saying, oh, I donated $10 to this homeless man. Oh, he should have a job and a home, why? Why is that your first reaction, you know?
And
The reality of it is that there's 140 million people that are poor or one paycheck away from being homeless.
Exactly.
One paycheck.
Like I said
So-
earlier, I can wake up next month and not have a roof over my head because I can't afford daycare, gas, which I get denied food stamps, so how am I supposed to feed 6 kids,
Right.
And you try to sign up for food banks, but they have them at different times or once a month, and I'm like, that's not going to last.
Right.
A friend of mine told me she pays $2,000 a month for daycare.
Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yep. That's, easily. And that's like cheap in our area.
I can't.
And I bet those daycare workers aren't.
They make minimum wage.
Yeah, they're not making much either.
And I try to like if you break it down, like if you're going to a wedding or going out, how much are you going to pay that babysitter? Probably $30, and that's what you pay for daycare. But when you have to pay it 5 times a week, that shit adds up. I'm paying $200 a week, $500 a week for daycare, whatever. And like I said, I had to quit my job because my paychecks were literally paying for daycare. So what was the point? And then COVID was rampant too. So me with a newborn, working in the medical field, bringing COVID home to my newborn that's also going to daycare, So it's like we are born to not survive.
So let me ask you, as we wind down, because I don't want to kill anyone in the heat, but as we wind down, is it possible on this theme of kind of forget labels and bringing people together,
Yeah.
that in this country you could have a real type of, I don't think we're having a general strike tomorrow, but a real type of economic protest. And what I mean by that is organizing in your local community, 1 or 2 actions, not for a day. It's not enough to protest Amazon for a day,
Yeah.
but people coming together to boycott that exploitive grocery store,
Yeah.
or boycott that corporate bank that's ripping off people, particularly black families, or Amazon, don't order from them. Obviously for some people that's not possible, and with that, instead of throwing our money on online poker or whatever people are, throw in with a mutual aid pot.
Yeah.
So you're not harming the workers. Because to me, I've been covering for years protests. I mean, I'm a white guy. I'm not telling black people how to protest or indigenous people how to protest, but at a certain point, we can't keep marching around the same streets, chanting the same things, expecting a different result. So what are your thoughts on the way forward? Because I don't really see, I think that people believed in Bernie, but I think we're learning you can't hero worship and expect one politician or one group of Congress people to change a rotten system.
Correct. And I think the biggest point that Bernie used to make is it's not me, it's us, right? So now we are the us that has to carry that along. So on that note, I think it is possible. I think we've seen it. I think we've seen it work, unfortunately, like with the George Floyd things, there was a lot of good that came out of that, the body cams. There was a lot of good that came out of like those protests. But those were specific demands that we were making, and we weren't going to stop until they were met.
Yeah.
So that has to be our attitude. We are protesting with this purpose, and unless this happens, we're not going to be defeated, we're not going to be detoured, we're going to keep going. I was just in Washington, D.C. last month with over 4,000 people from across the United States, from 48 different states, that were coordinated for the Poor People's Campaign, all meeting in D.C., demanding the same things for everybody. That everybody has a right to live, everybody has a right to food, everybody has a right to housing, everybody has a right to love whoever they choose. And everybody has a right to bodily autonomy. And unless you can guarantee that, we're not American citizens. And if we're not American citizens, we shouldn't be paying taxes, should we? So if you're not representing us, we don't have to pay you.
Without representation.
Right. So, let's talk about that. But there were over 4,000 of us there doing that. So yes, I believe it's possible. It just takes a whole lot of work. And organizing work is unpaid work for the most part, but it's important. And I wouldn't want to look in my daughter's eyes 10 years from now and say I didn't do what I've been doing. I wouldn't want to look at her and say I didn't try to stop climate change. I didn't try to do anything when people were being killed by police brutality. I didn't do anything when women's rights were being taken away. I can look at her and say, I'm doing everything I humanly can. Please join me. And that's what we need to be doing.
Yes, exactly.
And like
Honestly, the most. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
As far as you said about like marching around the same streets, we've done that a couple times here, and I think the most effective way, and this would take a little bit of maybe boundary pushing, is if we went right down on these tracks and stopped trains from coming back and forth. like they did in Kentucky, like
I'm
the
surprised
Yellow
they didn't just
Vests.
run you over at this point.
The Yellow Vests shut down France when they raised the gas tax over there. So if we especially worked in shifts to make sure people could come and go and no trains ever got through, they would be forced to meet our demands a lot faster, and they could say, well, just wait until the next election. Say, okay, we'll be here until the next election. You have to find somewhere else to send your trains.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially because Norfolk Southern has sent more than 1,000 jobs just in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And then they've got just up the mountain trains that run off the tracks and lay there for months because they don't have anybody to come and clean it up.
Right.
And a few years ago there was a dangerous spill right here in the middle of the city. They didn't even notify the city fire department to let them know that there were chemicals.
What the last thing you would tell people, because a lot of people watching that are kind of deflated, but when they hear this stuff about blocking trains and you know, they get their rallying cry. So what would be your last message to people, particularly about use this as an opportunity? I mean, inflation is hammering people, but it could also be used as an opportunity to start this organizing.
Yeah, I mean, like, just keep showing up. Don't shut up. I'm the town loudmouth, like, you know, and I'm not gonna shut up. I'm not gonna go away. I'm not gonna stop. And you know, the more people that stand up and show up, the more that encourages maybe your friend that's been watching you for a few years to finally come out and demonstrate and make their voice heard or register to vote or do something. But like, you know, everybody always says somebody should do something. Well, I'm somebody and I'm gonna do something. So encourage other people to do it. It might be scary, but we really don't have a choice at this point.
And one thing I would advise, not a political strategist, don't let the media off the hook. It's not enough to protest politicians. What the fuck is the media doing?
Oh,
I don't see them out here talking to you.
we barely got any coverage when I was running for mayor and city council. Our candidates barely got any coverage at all. But there was like 2-page spreads of things for the Republicans because money talks around here. I think when I ran for mayor, I spent under $500 because I don't have the money to spend. So,
Well, maybe they shouldn't be so comfortable then, the media. Maybe they need people outside their offices. Not talking about
Right.
violence.
No, the best forms of protest or disruption of some sort. The best union organizing is when you're disrupting their products, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have some sort of a purpose or disruption to make it uncomfortable for them, so they can understand a little bit about the uncomfortable level that we're living every day. And if it doesn't do that, if it doesn't have a purpose, if it doesn't achieve something, it's just walking around in a circle. You have to do it with a purpose.
Well, I was gonna say that basically what she said.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say, well, about what you said earlier. What's something that would motivate me, or one final word that I would like to tell other people, is that a sign that my mom actually has up in her bedroom, and it says, "If not us, who? If not now, when?" And that, like, totally broadened my horizons. Those very few words. Like, if we don't unionize, if we don't gather together for a cause despite color, race, ethnicity, gender, you know, whatever, however you want to identify me as, despite all of that, we are human and we deserve rights. You brag about how this is, not you specifically, but like everyone's bragging about, hey, America's the greatest country, come over here. The only thing that America is leading in is the poverty. The only thing America is leading in is that everyone's bragging about is like they have the most weapons out of
Most people incarcerated.
the most people incarcerated, and these weapons can go against like these major global superpowers, like 3 global superpowers, 2 of which are on our side. So, like all 3 of those combined, all of those global superpowers combined, amounts to about how much money and how much resources we have in guns, and
could go
and
somewhere.
and it could be helping the poor. And like, here's the thing: if you build from the bottom up, what happens? You get a sturdy foundation. If you start, like, it's like a Jenga piece. If you start like building on the top and taking from the bottom, eventually everybody collapses. So like, it's that whole thing where if we burn, you will burn with us.
We're all burning.
We're all burning.
burning.
Literally
Yeah.
right now.
This is fun.
If you
This
all,
is fun.
if you all could be so kind for my cameraman to say your names and spell it for when we cut this up into shorter videos.
Yeah, sure. Erin Pratt, ERIN PRATT.
Janina Gorman, JENNINA GORMAN.
Bridget Jackson, BRIDGETTE JACKSON.
Janae Forbes, JANEI FORB as in boy ES.
Timothy Baker, TIMOTHYBAKER.
And thank you guys for speaking with me, because honestly, I think I love going around, but I particularly like going to kind of,
Catch everyone's views.
yeah, and also kind of like ground zero for like the controlled demolition of what was the middle class, because this towns like this used to be the middle class before they took away all the rules on money and politics, so corporations could buy the politicians. Obviously the union busting in the 80s. Obviously you have the trade deals, but places like Altoona once upon a time were really vibrant cities. You know, you didn't have to work a full-time job and then do DoorDash and all this stuff.
Right.
So I think it's important, and also it's good to come speak with people that are progressive in kind of a more right-wing area and learn more about kind of the back and forth. You know, it's great to hear that you had such a great turnout for the George Floyd protest.
But then we also, like, the last election, it made Blair County a section, or what is it, Second Amendment sanctuary city.
Okay.
What the fuck is that? Like,
Yeah.
you need a sanctuary?
I don't think people realize what they're actually like voting
They
for, because
don't.
they're all into their religious views and what the church tells them, which churches should be taxed to. And like, I have a pretty decent sized TikTok following, and an amount of people that tell me that they deconstructed themselves of how they grew up and now what they stand for is amazing. So it just takes like opening your mind and your eyes to stand up for what is actually right, because we, like she said earlier, we all want the same thing. We want to fucking live, like.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me, like, you went to DC and what's the homeless population there?
It's
And in wintertime, there's literally homeless people frozen in tents, and government officials are stepping over them to walk into their buildings. Like, it's crazy.
He wanted to make sure you had water.
What I got.
But
All right, thanks folks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'll wrap up
Me too.
here.
Thank you so much.
So
I'm on Facebook.
we're just beginning
I'm
this
always
trip.
on her next.
We're headed to
Help me
Pittsburgh
too.
next, so we'll be
Yeah.
there tomorrow. I got some interviews in Pittsburgh, then we're heading to Ohio. If I miss super chats, I apologize. I'm not going to read them because it's too fucking hot. But thank you for the super chats. If you left super chats, if you signed up as a member today, thank you. If you haven't, consider signing up as a member for $5 to $10 a month. That's statuscoup.com/join. statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. As kindly as I could say, I don't really see much media traveling around talking to the people. I do not see much of that. And if they do, they usually will talk to them for 5 minutes and then cut up 5 seconds, in many cases making them look stupid. I've seen that a lot among local media. So if you can support us, please do. It makes a big difference. And I think these interviews are important, not just to like doom and gloom, but also to kind of get that, like, what is the strategy forward. And I think one of the ladies that was speaking about the Poor People's Campaign and what they're doing is really important. That stuff doesn't get a lot of media attention, even in independent media. They don't really cover as much what like folks like the Poor People's Campaign is doing, but super, super important. So again, we're going to Pittsburgh. Make sure you're on our text list so you get a text message when we're live. statuscoup.com/text. You could also support this trip
I'll ask for pity because it's fucking hot out. Let me tell you. And I think tomorrow is going to be like 98. So please support us if you can. You could also support us at PayPal. That's paypal.me/statuscoup. paypal.me/statuscoup. Whatever you could leave there. But most importantly, if you can sign up as a member. That's how we fund these trips. That's how we fund Status Coup. We do not make a lot of money on YouTube. Most of our funding comes from our members. And as a member, you also get to join us on the monthly members call. That's on Zoom. We just had our members call last week. So that's always fun on Zoom. And you also get behind the scenes videos. We just did one that we uploaded this morning. We'll do another one probably tomorrow, kind of give you a behind the scenes feel from reporting trips, and join our Discord for members too. But most of all, you're supporting the work, the on the ground reporting. We have other interviews lined up focused on inflation and other things. So please, if you can, chip in statuscoup.com/join, $5 to $10 a month. Makes a big difference. And share these videos. If you can't support us financially, press the share button, post on your social media, a separate post telling people, watch this. You're not going to see it on corporate media. Thank